I'm Chuck Brown, and this is my testimony. Whenever I was asked to speak, I was I started praying and asked God, what should I say? How would you have me tell my story? And I was really nervous and anxious about it, and the answer was simple: just tell the truth. And so anyway, cool, man, I can do that. And so I'll just start from the beginning. As a child growing up, I grew up in a very violent home. My father had a lot of mental issues, plus an alcoholic, and it was not abnormal to, be in my bedroom at night and hear him screaming at my mother all night long, and wake up the next morning and just things thrown everywhere. It looked like a tornado went through the house. He just threw a fit, and it was not abnormal for him to knock my sister and I around. He was a big old guy, and he could send you flying across the room. And he often would say to all of us, as a young child, I heard many times how fat, stupid, and ugly I was, and I just felt worthless. And even though I knew he was crazy, but whenever you hear that over and over and over again, you tend to believe it. And so I had a problem going to school and feeling like I could connect with people. I had a problem, I could make friends and joke around, but I was embarrassed about who I was. It didn't matter what room I was in. I never felt as good as others. I was embarrassed about who I was. I was embarrassed about my life. I was embarrassed about my home life, and I was overweight, so I was slower than the other kids, and I really did not feel good about myself. And I was raised going to church, but I just always felt like I believed that there was a God, and I believed that the creator and this sort of thing. But as far as any kind of personal relationship, I felt like I was a person that kind of slipped through the cracks. And that's the way I lived for a long time, and that's kind of how my thinking was. I would see I would see pictures of Jesus on the cross, and for some reason it made me feel sad, and it made me feel ashamed, or at least that's the response I felt inside. So I really didn't have much interest in spirituality. I always had this feeling like joy is for other people. I would see other people, and I'd go to friends' houses and their families and all that. And my life was so much different than others. Anyway. Growing up, in my teenage years and all that, I started drinking, and it helped me to escape who I was. I didn't really kind of realize that's what I was doing at the time, but I look back now, and it was an escape. I could be somebody else. I was starting to have fun in life, at least it seemed that way. And but it didn't take me too much long, and I liked the feeling not just really socializing like drinking or doing drugs with people. After a while, I liked that feeling of being lost, of just escaping life in every way. I didn't feel good about who I was, and I never had as a child. Anyway, but I did learn how to pray, even though I didn't have much or any faith at all at the time. But Mother taught me how to pray, and whenever she see me start to drink heavily, she would often mention, And she would say it not in a hatred way, but in a very concerning, loving way. She would say, Chuck, I can see Satan starting to work on you. And I just blew it off. I thought, I'm doing my own thing. I'm having fun. I didn't think much of it. And she often said that, she prayed for me. And like I say, I just kind of blew it off. And, well, appreciate it, Mom. But, and I was under the, I thought, man, I'm not hurting anybody. I'm just kind of doing my own thing, and I had no ambition in life to better myself. I had no ambition to educate, to be educated and to get a career later and this sort of thing. Once I drank and did drugs, I thought this is what I want to do. And anyway, I ended up, whenever I was 20, my girlfriend at the time, we had our first child together. And I always, whenever I was a kid, I always thought, man, I want to be a good father, whenever that happens. And I love my, and later on, we had I had a daughter first, and then I had a son later on, and got married, and this sort of thing. And I really, it wasn't a lack of love for my family. It was a lack of love for myself. And I was already, you just can't be a father and a husband and be a dope fiend. You just can't. It's, even though I wanted to, and ended up later on, my wife at the time took the kids and left. And I look back now, and she had every right to, but that's when things got really dark. I started doing a lot more drugs. Meth was my thing, and people would come over to the house and make dope and this sort of thing. And I felt so empty inside at the time, and the only thing that I thought would cure it or relieve it was dope. And the more dope I did, the more emptier I was left inside, and it was just this vicious cycle. Do more dope to try to feel better, and then the downside of that left me more empty. And like I say, I had people coming over and making dope and this sort of thing, and they would make dope, and we would all do our thing and all that. But once the party was over, the demons were left there, and I don't mean that by a figure of speech. There's very much a darkness surrounding me, but I was in that vicious cycle, and I did this for years, and finally I was just so sick of being alive. I was sick of myself, sick of anybody I'd ever cared about was highly disappointed in me. People just thought that I was going to die that way, and I was losing my mind. The police were on me pretty hard, and it just finally, after years of this, things were so dark and so empty. I finally cried out to God and said, God, I don't want to be like this anymore. And I felt so hopeless. And but I said this prayer just in tears rushing so much that once I was done crying, I just felt dehydrated. I cried so much. And anyway, so it wasn't a thing where he sent a bunch of angels. It was more a thing he sent the police, and this ultimately landed me into a faith-based program called Higher Ground, and I knew that I didn't think that I could ever be clean. and not many other people did either. I felt very hopeless. But something, this is the weirdest thing, in one of the classes there, we kind of learned how Satan operates, and something hit me, and what hit me was that mom was right all the time. So, learning how Satan operated sounded so familiar, and that was me to a T. And I knew that I had been living with a however you want to say it, with the darkness around me, and being influenced by I was around criminal activity all the time, and I did criminal activity, and I was around drugs all the time. That was my life, and I think the ultimate goal is there was a force out there that wanted to destroy me, that wanted me to take my own life, because I often contemplated suicide. And anyway, so I came to Higher Ground, this faith-based program, and eventually I was kind of interested in this. So eventually I started going to church here at High Life Church. And I kind of sat on the back row, and I felt nervous, and I felt out of place and all that. And I seen all these people, praising God and just being happy and joyous. And I never thought I could be one of these people. I thought, well, they haven't gone through what I've gone through. Or they're naive, or I couldn't understand it. But I knew that there was something here, and anyway, so I kept on coming, and because through the Higher Ground program, I started to accumulate some clean time, and just so happens the last year that my mother was alive, I was able to be clean and help her out around the house with her health issues, and be there for her. And that meant a lot to the both of us. So mamas, keep praying for your babies, no matter how old they are. I'm so thankful for Mom's prayers, because she's the only one that didn't give up on me. And those that did give up on me, I understand, because I lived a hopeless life, and full of chaos, and I was stuck in it, and that's how I thought I was going to die. But anyway, so I started coming to church, and I asked Pastor Mike Rogers. I asked him, do you care if I steal one of these Bibles? And he's like, no, but you can have one. And yeah, he's so cool, man. And so I start reading. I start reading the shorter books like Galatians, Colossians, Corinthians. Some of the shorter ones. I thought I'll just kind of start out small here. And much to my surprise, what had always, anytime I'd ever read the Bible before, it was like a foreign language. I just couldn't understand it, and I got confused and didn't really get it. But I would pray before I started reading the Bible, and things started to make sense, and I was inspired, and I was so surprised at how much I could relate. I always thought, man, this is a history book, 1,000 years old. I can't relate to it. But all of a sudden, my eyes started to open a little bit, and I was really having a rough time my first few years clean. I was around people that treated me like I could never be good enough, and I was very depressed, and I thought to myself, if this is what clean time is like, I can't go back to my old life. And if this is what clean time is like, I just don't want to keep on living. But I started digging into my Bible. I started going to 12-step meetings and doing step work, and have a really great sponsor in this sort of thing, and putting things into action. And I kept going to church, and the more I came, the more comfortable I felt. The pastors here, they took time out of their own time and prayed for me, and often asked me how I was doing, and they meant it. It wasn't just, hey, how you doing? A real relationship, a friendship started to happen with all my pastors, and it felt good to have that family feel, and it didn't take long. Well, it took a while, but pretty soon I started to become one of these joyous people in church, and I didn't think it could ever happen to me, and so I kept digging in, and later on I ended up getting baptized, and but I still just had this just kind of wall up, like it was shame, because whenever you do step work and this sort of thing, you really take a hard look at how have I affected others in my life, and it's tough to be self-honest, but it's absolutely necessary. And so I felt all this shame, and finally one day, I kept digging, and kept attending church, and finally one day I was in my apartment, and I was just kind of doing things. I wasn't really thinking about anything. And all of a sudden, I got a message, a voice, however you want to say it, man. I 100% believe this, that it wasn't just me thinking or me talking to myself. It was a message, and God told me, he says, Chuck, have I not forgiven you? And I kind of thought about it for a second. I'm like, yes. And he goes, well, act like it then. And there was such a personality there. There was such a personal feeling. It was like a whole conversation. And all of a sudden, just this weight lifted off of me. And ever since then, I've been so grateful. And I understand those pictures of the cross that I seen as a child. Those aren't meant to feel shame. That's meant to show just how much of a gift that is. And I'm so grateful. And I wish they had more pictures of the resurrection, where Jesus comes back and he's high-fiving his friends, and telling Thomas, hey, I told you, I wish that there was more pictures of that, man. But there's a relationship gain there. And all my life I thought joy was for other people, and now I'm living in a joy and a peace that only God offers. I've lived that dark side, and all that's left, all of that is a very beautifully gift wrapped cage, and God offers freedom. And I'm so thankful for the Word of God, and that Jesus is a model of how I should live my life. And am I a model? That's very highly debatable. But the thing is, I'm doing much better, man. My life has greatly improved. Anyway, and I can connect with people. I'm surrounded by people who really care about me. I can even people at work. I'm so grateful for the people that I have in my life these days. I'm so grateful for my relationship with my pastors here at church, and grateful for the 12-step meetings in recovery. And God is very much a godsend, and I think that whenever I said that prayer in tears, said, God, I don't want to be like this anymore. I think God was like, yeah, here we go. We can start. We can start now. And like somebody said in their testimony a while back, I'm in God's little repair shop, and that made a lot of sense to me. And anyway, this is my story. But what I really hope for is that somebody gets inspired by this, that somebody understands that you're never hopeless as long as you involve God. God offers love, God offers freedom, and God offers joy and peace. And if you think that this is not for you, I would say this is especially for you. I 100% believe that. Anyway, I'm Chuck Brown. I've now have 8 years clean, or no, 7.5 years clean. I'm sorry. I now have 7.5 years clean. I attend church on a regular. I pay my tithing. Man, I do things in the community, and I like to do things that aren't seen by people. I'm not one to be on Facebook. This is what I did for something. No, it feels good whenever I can take my ego out of the way and just be helpful, because that's what God would have me do. And so anyway, I'm Chuck Brown, and I'm a child of God, and I'm proud to be.